for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the law office of Alan Butel here in downtown Las Vegas. Alan is one of our regular attorneys on the show, and he does criminal defense and civil litigation. If you need a lawyer, you might be one you'd want to look at. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. A little background, we put up a new show every Thursday. We are taping this show on Wednesday because of conflicting things for both of us. But this show will, when you tune in Thursday as you normally would, you will find the show, and subscribers will get it on Thursday as they normally do. If you go to YouTube, you can subscribe to the show, and then it'll just pop up a day, usually the next day, on your computer, whatever, and show you what happened. The radio rebroadcast is Saturday mornings now from 9 a.m. till 10 on KELY, 1230 a.m. in Ely, and it is simulcast all over the state of Nevada. 3 stations in Reno, Sparks, Battle Mountain, Hawthorne, Amargosa Valley, and a few others. I didn't even complete the list. They all simulcast. It's all the same show, and they simulcast it anywhere you are in rural Nevada. The show comes on Saturday. They run the news first. Actually comes on at 9:05, but you can find it at KELY, 1230am.com. My guest tonight is California Nevada firearms kind of gun specialist attorney, Donald Green. Don, if you would, a bit of your background for anybody that hasn't seen you on the show.
Okay,
a
thank
regular
you.
guest.
Thank you. Again, Bob, it is an honor to be on your show. For those of you who don't know, my name is Don Green. You can find me at dongreenlaw.com. The emphasis of our practice is criminal defense, gun-related cases, and business litigation. And by gun-related cases, we're talking about whether you're charged criminally with the use of a firearm, whether you've got an administrative problem with the use of a firearm, whether you're trying to get a firearm and you've got administrative problems, FBI appeals of denied background checks, letters to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, administrative proceedings before the Nevada Department of Public Safety, General Service Division, Brady Unit. They have a specialized unit, and we deal with those people quite frequently concerning denials of firearms or delays in, when you have a background check or there's a problem with that. And they're always welcome to call me again. Yeah. Go to dongreenlaw.com.
Most of those can be fixed. I've been asked, there's been a lot of press because of the events this week, and I've been interviewed about everybody in the world has my home phone on speed dial from when I used to run the gun store. But the numbers Don is really talking about is we get about a 4% rate that are denials or delays, which seems like an awful lot of people. And ultimately, when they are looked into, they are reversed. And when attorneys get involved, more are reversed. And the ultimate denial rate is about 0.4%, about 10%. So if you are delayed or denied on something to do with a CCW or whatever, usually it's just a paperwork error. How many people in Western United States are named Don Green? Hundreds.
Hundreds.
How many have the same similar birth date, whatever? I mean, we run into this all the time. It's no big deal. If they give you a hard time about it, Don is your guy, and it'll get fixed. Anyway, we also want to do a little disclaimer. We talk about shootings, good, bad, or indifferent, that happened here and there around the country. As examples, I usually leave the names out, but the point I want to make is if you are involved in a case now, you've shot somebody, you're in litigation over something to do, get a local attorney. You can get a hold of Don, who can recommend somebody in most states. I can recommend somebody in a lot of states. But the law in what is a good shooting in Las Vegas is a lousy shooting in California. What is a great shooting in Wyoming, they'll put you in prison for in New York City, et cetera, et cetera. You need a guy who knows the local laws and how they're enforced. So if you're looking at something on the show and going, I did that, oh, they've given me a solution. It probably isn't the solution where you live, but at least it may not be. And not a whole lot we can do from here anyway, so you need local counsel. I also have to address right up top here, the October 1st, 2017, a week ago, murders here in Las Vegas. Our hearts are absolutely broken over the events at this Route 91 Harvest Country Music Festival. Now is the time to grieve, not the time to make knee-jerk reactions and pass laws that will cause more distress and be impossible to enforce and so forth, because they're not thinking about what they're doing. The left wants to pass laws now with all this, if not now, when routine. Not now. We're still looking, as you know, if you're local, and I suppose in the national news also, yes, the timeline of the events is changing literally every day. They release more information as to what happened and the timing and so forth and so on. So based on what we know, I can tell you this: the other 200 million plus gun owners didn't shoot anybody on that day, didn't murder anybody. So penalizing them, the people who keep guns for self-defense as their tools for self-defense, would be really foolish. Mm-hmm. And if we pass some knee-jerk law, you can bet it's going to prove to be a mistake. That being said, I drove by the Las Vegas sign where they set up a few days ago crosses with the names and pictures of all the people. And you can't see that and not be impacted by it. It is a horrible event. Hopefully it will never happen again. Okay, a couple of shooting cases we want to talk about. This first one is from KFLA TV8 at St. Petersburg, Florida. This was on the 5th of this month. A St. Petersburg man accused of breaking into numerous homes all across Tampa Bay is now in jail. His arrest comes after the cops say he picked the wrong house to burglarize. You can guess what happened. St. Petersburg detectives believe the 35-year-old suspect is a prolific burglar. Just over 2 months, he's broken into more than a dozen homes in St. Petersburg, Gulfport, and Tampa. His latest crime is almost his last. At a home on Riverside Drive North in St. Petersburg, an armed homeowner almost shot him as police say he was trying to break in. He came in, stole some guns, and came back a few days later for more. This is a very dangerous criminal, said Sandra Bentel. She's a spokesperson for the St. Petersburg Police Department. Police say he broke in on Sunday, stole more than 20 guns and other items. We need a gun safe here. Then came back on Wednesday. This time, the homeowner was there, confronted the intruder, and fired at him as he sped away. The police found their suspects, 6 stolen guns and other stolen property a few blocks away with the guy. He is cooperating. So it's pretty much undetermined at this point how many incidents he's been involved in, but he's been tied to several so far, police reported. A neighbor is upset gunfire was so close to her home. She said, I'm quoting, "I mean, we have kids, it's our property." It irks the neighbor, but she gave him credit, the homeowner credit for what he did. She said the suspect was scoping out houses and taking her hard-earned money, and that's not right. Jail records show police arrested this suspect in July last year for the same thing. He was out on probation for those crimes when he was arrested during this incident. Seems like a good shoot, or good non-shoot. Most crimes we discover, it's the same guys doing them over and over and over again. And if this arrest takes this guy off the street finally, he's on probation for previous burglaries. They caught him with stolen guns and stolen property. Pretty good arrest. I congratulate the St. Petersburg Police Department. The lesson learned here is burglars come back. If they get away, don't assume they're not going to come back to your house. If they got away clean, stole 20 guns, are they going to come back and try it again? Of course. Yes. Burglars do it over and over again until they go to prison. It's like the creed of burglars. Comments on this one?
A few comments. The most important one is something pertinent that I've had in Las Vegas in the past 2 weeks. In fact, it was on Sunday, October 1st, that I learned that one of my potential clients had somewhere between 15 and 20 guns stolen within about 24 hours before that in a home which was being renovated. So someone knew that the house was being renovated, and the weapons were stored in what can only be described as one of those 1995 Walmart storage cabinets, which had been bolted to the ground with cement. So there was some in the garage. Now, most of these weapons, there were no serial numbers taken down by the homeowners. There were only a couple of the weapons which had serial numbers. So you can imagine the response by the police officers when they said, well, you've got all these guns and very few serial numbers. Now, you had mentioned that this actually has two shootings, two incidents involving the same homeowner and the same perpetrator. The first one is he's protecting property. He's trying to take care of business. He's doing the right thing. But what happens in incident shooting number 2? We know that the homeowner is waiting. Lying in wait is a felony special circumstance for first-degree murder in every state in the United States. If he's in California, possibly Nevada, waiting for the burglar to return and he's armed, that is not fear of great bodily death, or great bodily injury or death. You're waiting to do something. The second point is that not only was the homeowner waiting, but according to the report, subject to verification, the homeowner fired at the intruder as the intruder sped off. Once you turn your back and away in going in a speeding car, a speeding vehicle, question from the prosecution to the defense attorney before you even go to trial, how does he explain, how does your client explain the fear of great bodily injury or death as the perpetrator is speeding away? Best thing to do is try to get a description of the vehicle, possibly license plates. But I would say it could be a good shooting. In my estimation, the jury's not out, the jury's not in yet, and I think the homeowner is definitely going to have a problem in California because he will be arrested for the lying in wait and the firing from an occupied structure into an occupied vehicle, even though he was protecting himself and his own property.
Yeah, it's more like, I'm going to shoot this guy so then he'll get killed and I can run out there and get my guns back. We don't know. You know, you never know what the guy is thinking. And people under this kind of stress and duress, there's no telling what they're thinking. They're not taking time out to go get a law degree. They're just basing it on a gut reaction. And sometimes that's a reasonable defense, or a defense at least you can use in court to get a plea bargain down to something that is not 20 years in prison for attempted murder. This one, going to be tough. And this happened in California, it would be incredibly tough. I'm just, anyway, I've got a lot of these home invasion shooting stuff tonight. Just we're kind of featuring those. This is from 10/6, Fox TV 2. This is in Redford Township, Michigan. That's an area very near Detroit. Police say the homeowner was shot. The home intruder was shot by a homeowner after the suspects entered the home looking for property. Police were called to the 11,600 block of Kinrock just before 8 p.m. Thursday when the suspect entered the home occupied by a woman. The woman, who doesn't live at the home, was inside with an infant when the suspect came in. They were using the home so she could babysit. The suspect told the woman she wanted property from the home. The homeowner got home during the encounter while he was inside telling her he wanted property. Got into a physical fight with the suspect. The suspect then ran from the scene. As the intruder ran, police said, the homeowner shot a gun and hit the man in the hand. The suspect was taken into custody, taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say the homeowner and suspect didn't know each other before the incident. The homeowner, the woman that was staying there, and the infant were not injured. Police are still investigating and will send the facts of the case over to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office for review. This is a suburb of Detroit, Wayne County. Obviously, in most cases, we'll run across a few here where the prosecutor or the police chief decides they're not going to prosecute. But I'm not really sure the police chief can do that in jurisdictions. I think he's just chattering. But anyway, this goes, of course, all the shootings go over the prosecutor's office, usually for the county. And they'll look at it and see what happened, and look at the timing and so forth and so on. But got into a physical fight with the suspect. The suspect, this is recording the police report. The suspect then ran from the scene. As the intruder ran, police said the homeowner shot a gun and hit the man in the hand. Now, I will look at this as hopefully a timing issue. If the guy turns to run and we're in the same few seconds of the engagement, and you're firing where there's no time to reasonably determine, I'm going to fire and shoot this guy, he's running away, it's all part of the same action, you're probably okay and just need a really good lawyer. If it's not part of the same action and there's actually a delay before the shot is fired, that's an entirely different thing, where you've had time to realize that you haven't developed there's no, oh my God, my life's in danger, I got to shoot my gun moment. It's already passed, and this then becomes shooting a fleeing person.
Yes.
Which is a crime almost anywhere you want to
go. Bob, as usual and as expected, you make an excellent, irrefutable point. Once the intruder is moving away, the victim, the homeowner, has a difficult case in convincing the jury that the shot was necessary in self-defense, or in this case, defense of the woman with the infant. The best thing you can possibly do as a concealed carry, as a holder of a concealed weapons permit, is to get as much training as possible. I'm not talking about going to a class every week, but I want you to go to a class where you've checked out that the instructors, the personnel, are ex-law enforcement, current law enforcement, or they have law enforcement officers come in and maybe guest speakers. I frequently go to these CCW classes and advanced handgun classes, or that the instructor is qualified in some way other than the basic qualifications for a CCW instructor. And you should get some kind of training which is going to have real world examples rather than just sitting in the class and watching some movies. You can't get away from that. And there is a proliferation of CCW classes throughout the Las Vegas Valley.
Yes.
Right now, we have over 100,000 concealed weapons permits issued in the state of Nevada. There are over 70,000 of those issued in Clark County alone. But you're not going, as you point out, you're not going to have that time to go through everything that Bob has just broken down for you. And you have to look at that. And when you go to these training exercises and you go to these classes and they put you through the advanced training where someone's holding your arm, where someone's running at you from the side, and you're expected to fire into a target let's say 3 shots at particular distances, and you have that stress, maybe you won't be that. Maybe that stress won't be recreated in a real incident, but you will at least have the training. You see what it takes, and as Bob points out, you don't have time in those milliseconds to decide, well, this is going to be a good shooting, and pull it out and shoot the little old lady who is asking you for some change at Walmart in the middle of the night.
We've all had, Don and I, and most of the people associated with this show, have had lots of instances where the amount of stress that takes place changes the entire dynamic, because you bypass the reasoning part of your brain and you're using your reptile brain, some of the people call it, where you simply react to what you see, and all of the knowledge you had went away. In teaching, it was a non-fatal incident, but most of you know I used to teach police academies over years and years, and we had at the end of it, there's a qualification. You know, we have a course, they got to shoot so many seconds and on the target, and that you move from here to here to here and fire, so many runs in so many seconds. And one of the strings, a young would-be police officer experienced from not holding the gun tightly enough, experienced a stovepipe. If you hold the gun too loosely, automatics, the slide won't reciprocate quite all the way, and you're left with what we call a stovepipe, an empty casing that you just fired sticking out of the ejection port. And we go through drills. You know, if your gun doesn't work for whatever reason, you slap the magazine, make sure it's in, because that's usually the problem. Then you grab the top of the slide and rack it violently. And if you grab the top of the slide to do that, your hand will land on that stovepipe and you'll clear it away from the gun. So there's a reaction drill, bang, and you re-engage. What this cadet did, saw that, looked down, saw the stovepipe. One, we don't want him to do that. We want him looking at the target. You clear the stovepipe automatically. And threw his or her firearm down to the ground and started screaming. Now, in police academies, of course, you have to pass a certain number of tests, and And our policy then in Southern Nevada was, if you fail one test, you can get remedial training and so on and so on. If you fail 2 tests, you're gone. And she'd already failed the test. He'd already failed the test. And threw the gun down, and obviously that caused her. That was a lady did it. That ended her law enforcement career. But that's really not being harsh, because this is just the stress of not making time on a target. But in a real gunfight, when there's rounds coming the other way, right, how in the world is she going to stand the stress of that and keep her partner from getting killed? You know, it's just and not everybody's put up for this job. Yeah,
and you're talking also, contrast that with your with all due respect, your average Joe on the street. Again, I use the examples at Walmart because most people can visualize distances at Walmart. The handicap parking to the front door, right, the parking way in the back at Christmas time when you can't get something up front. Most people can visualize Walmart, and that's why I use that as an example sometimes. But you're right. You have to contrast this with your viewers and your listeners, who they might not get that training at the police academy, but there are excellent programs out there, which they're not cheap, but some of them are not that expensive, and maybe you can get a deal at a gun show or a 20% off coupon or something. But I highly recommend it, because it's one of the first questions I'm going to ask you when you get on the stand, if there is a self-defense shooting. Because if you don't get on the stand in a self-defense shooting, the case is over.
You're going to have to explain to the jury what happened and why. Unfortunately, in our legal system, that means the prosecutor gets to talk to you too, and ask all those questions you don't want to answer or don't know the answer to. I know it's everybody's constitutional right not to take the stand in their own defense. I also know that I've testified in a lot of cases, and looking how jurors react, you're killing yourself when you don't take the stand. You just, they'll explain the legal ramifications, not required to, so and so on. But if you don't, that's a big, hard thing to beat in court. And your attorney, if they know what they're doing, will explain that to you. And they'll coach you through it, you know, say this, say that. But you're going to be then confronted by the opposing counsel who has a college postgraduate degree in arguing. You know, if you're lying, they're going to take you apart. You will never be able to withstand that.
Right.
Just can't have it. WATE-TV6. Let me skip this. I want to get to this other guy that I want to talk about. Go to number 5, Orlando.com. This is News 6 in Orlando on the 9th, not long ago. Volusia County?
Volusia.
Okay. An 81-year-old homeowner shot at a man who tried to break into his Edgewater area home Monday morning, according to the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. The victim said he was laying in bed about 9:15 a.m. when he heard someone knocking on the door and ringing the doorbell. He looked out the window and saw a man he didn't recognize, so he didn't open the door. The stranger then, while he's watching, put on gloves and went around to the back of the house. The victim grabbed a .22 caliber pistol when he heard a window break and saw the man reaching through the window to clear away the shattered glass. The homeowner then feared for his life and his wife's safety, so he fired 3 to 4 shots at the man. Police say the man then fled in a mid-2000 Chevrolet Silverado. I have to explain, the back door of the house is floor-to-ceiling panes that are about 8 by 12 inches. It's individual glass panes. So the guy had broken one of those panes to try and reach through to undo the bolt on it. But they could clearly see each other. They're only a few feet apart at this moment, separated by the door, but the door, of course, is made out of glass, so it really didn't separate anybody. Anyway, the victim said he fired 3 to 4 shots at the truck as it sped away. He said, I fired a whole bunch of them. I don't know whether I hit him or not. One time I heard him go, oh, the homeowner told the 911 operator. Based on that statement, investigators believe it's possible the man was shot or grazed by a bullet. Now, this is another guy who is firing at a fleeing burglar. The reports say that this was an intruder, and this I'm quoting from the police reports when I started to read this in the newspaper. This intruder, well, a couple of odd things. He wasn't really an intruder. He didn't actually enter the house other than his hand going in, which is an intrusion.
Yes.
Standing on the back porch. First off, there's a lot of things wrong here. When you're talking to 911, you are talking to the best witness to the entire event who is unimpeachable in court. It is a recording of your voice saying what happened. Now, you might say something in panic that is incorrect, but when he made the statement, I fired a whole bunch of shots at the vehicle that was fleeing, that's tough in a good shooting. This guy is 81, looks older when this, if you look up this story at Orlando.com or News 6 in Volusia County, he looks older than that. He's very frail, very thin. Hopefully his age will negate any serious charges, or if there are serious charges, it'll avoid serious punishment. I can see he did something really stupid. He's clearly firing at a vehicle that's driving away. There is clearly no threat to life. He's got his elderly wife in the house with him, but she's not in any danger. at the time the shots were fired. And hopefully the jury or the judge, and the guy could get 20 years, but why would you do that?
Why would you give him the 20 years, or why would you shoot?
Well, why would you give him the 20 years? This to me is a very sympathetic defendant, and I would like to see him. Again, it's as we were talking about before. This is a guy who has no idea what the rules are, you know, and he stepped in it.
Yes, he did. In California,
he's gone.
He is going to be charged with the crime of discharge of the firearm from an occupied residence, discharge of a firearm in possibly a residential neighborhood, discharge of a firearm in the yard of your house towards a vehicle, attempted murder. If a bullet hit another person's home, you know, there's a separate series of crimes right there. You can't shoot a fleeing felon, but as you pointed out, suppose that the perpetrator was turned around and was firing rounds at you, then you clearly have a right of self-defense.
Yeah.
In Nevada, it's possible that the 81-year-old man, regardless of his age, could be charged with the same offenses or similar offenses. I'm not licensed in Florida, but I think that it's possible he could be charged, especially on the second set of shootings. I mean, those might get reduced, but the first set of shootings, like you said, was it an intrusion? He's 81, elderly wife. The guy goes from one end to the other. The guy is not there to collect for the Red Cross.
Clearly, he sees him putting on
Yes.
gloves. He sees him going to the back of the house, sees him break through a window, which under their law may or may not be entering the house, but he's standing on the back porch, which may well be entering the house under their laws. He's on the property, and at the door.
And you mentioned he's talking to 911. So if he's calling 911, there's already stress factors in place generally. What is the probability that a person is going to call 911 more than a few times in his or her life? I don't think very many. As you point out, was there great bodily injury present? Was there the ability to do it? One of your prime points, which you must look at whether your perpetrator has the ability to inflict the great bodily injury or death. Was that present? Maybe not. Again, you're talking about an 81-year-old person, but the standard is not the age. The standard is a reasonable person standard. That's what the jury is going to be instructed on, is whether a reasonable person would have done something like this. This is the instruction I would ask for as a defense attorney. Of course, the state's going to argue you're not entitled to the instruction because he clearly and deliberately shot at the vehicle as it was going away, knowing that it was being driven. If a vehicle is being driven, we can put two and two together and say someone was driving it. That's why I think in California, he's got a real problem. Nevada, not so much. But again, his age, although it may be considered in mitigation, I don't believe that he's going to get an instruction based specifically on his age. Again, it's what would a reasonable person do under the circumstances. The smart lawyer is going to look for, I want elderly men and women on my jury. That's who I want. The opposite end will be the prosecution is going to want younger people. With all due respect, the Facebook and Twitter generation, although our president is very fond of Twitter. But what I'm saying is that you've got these dynamics which you have to look at and you have to think about.
It's a tough case. If you pull up the story on the internet, or maybe when AmmoLand does it, they will put the guy's picture. He is a tiny, skinny little waif of a person. I doubt he weighs 120 pounds. And clearly, any physical force applied by somebody younger than him, there's no question that he could have been seriously injured had it gone to that. I think he'd make a very, very good defendant that on the stand trying to explain what he did. After he's given some prompting by his attorney as to what's going on, and not to say, yeah, so I shot the guy driving away, you know. They ask him that, he's going to have to tell the truth. And this guy will
say exactly what has happened. And I have had police officers say to me, Mr. Green, I understand that you've told Mr. X not to say anything, and this is right after a shooting. My client is in the back of the squad car. And the detective comes up and says, Mr. Green, listen, all we want you to do is confirm what he told 911. You could be present. We're there. It's 4:30 in the morning. Over there by Rancho and Charleston, by the old Kmart a few years ago. December, I believe, 2014. It's now 11:30 in the morning. My guy's been in the car for 5 or 6 hours. So, Mr. Smith, from Don Green to Mr. Smith, tell him what you told 911. It's never going to be the same, but don't embellish it. Don't lie. And then when he said that, the officer, who had already obviously either talked to 911 or heard the tape or whatever, told the other officer, go ahead and unhook him, and we'll be in touch.
Good thing. Get a lawyer. It's so ridiculous to me in the day and age we live in that people that know nothing about guns or nothing about law don't understand, just from watching TV shows, they need a lawyer. There are so many nooks and crannies and corners and tripwires in the system. When I'm working as a bailiff years ago, I had a guy come in and we're going through the metal detector, and he says, do you think I need a lawyer if I'm here? And I said, criminal, well, I don't know anything about your case. What's your name? And he said, whatever it was. And I looked on the sheet. And he's being charged with his 3rd DUI inside of 4 years. That is a mandatory prison time. Does he need a lawyer? This is not to defend people that are drunk drivers. But I said, if you get to court and you're asking the bailiff if you need a lawyer, you need a lawyer.
You need a lawyer.
I can't imagine that people would do that in this day and age. Here's a Chicago case to rally, going back to number 4. This is from the Chicago Sun-Times, a case in Chicago. WGN TV 9 also covered it. This is on 10/8/17. A homeowner opened fire on a man who was trying to break into his residence late Saturday in the Bronzeville neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. A 44-year-old man suffered multiple gunshot wounds to the body at 10:54 p.m. as he was trying to break into a home on the 4500 block of South St. Lawrence, according to Chicago police. The homeowner told investigators that he opened fire after the man forced his way into the home with a crowbar. The suspect then jumped into a vehicle which fled to Mercy Hospital. The man was expected to be transferred in critical condition to Stoger Hospital. The homeowner, a 60-year-old man, had a valid FOID card, firearms under identification. He had a legally owned firearm, and had a concealed carry permit that they're now issuing in Chicago because they have to. Charges were pending against the home invader early Sunday. Now, I realize that the press, and I could only find the 2 stories, and they're kind of related. Chicago Sun-Times and WGN TV are located, they cooperate with each other. The original story calls this an attempted break-in, but the guy was actually in the house, apparently, according to the wording. So I don't understand the confusion there. So we don't know for sure whether he was actually in the home with a crowbar, but a crowbar certainly is a weapon that would cause grievous bodily harm. No doubt, it's a deadly threat. Whether that fact will cause the city of Chicago to choose to charge the homeowner with a crime for firing his gun and therefore endangering others in the neighborhood is the question here. They're kind of big on errant shots that may hit somebody
Yes.
else, public endangerment. And this is really going to hinge on what part of this story is really true, and I couldn't find any follow-up on it because nobody died, so they don't write a second story. And as sneaky as I am, I can't get into the city of Chicago police reports. Just they're precinct by precinct, and you could spend 3 days in the computer and never find. If you search man shot in Chicago trying to break into home,
So hundreds.
you hit hundreds every day, literally. So when you read the press and it says attempted break-in, and then the guy was in the home according to the rest of it, clearly if he's in the home and he's got a crowbar, this is a good shoot. And under what the city of Chicago is going to do about it, I can't imagine Ron Emanuel saying don't charge this guy. They're going to say charge him with something. Yeah.
Yes.
You're in the most anti-gun place probably in the entire country except New York City, and I'm not sure that Chicago would win that contest. He did everything right. He had his FOID card, he had his concealed carry permit, so they didn't take him to jail at the scene. They looked at that and went, okay, and now they send it to the city attorney.
Right. I think that Bob, please recall that several months ago we had an example of the homeowner who had a hunting rifle and he ran out. This was in protection of his son. I think you remember the example.
Yeah.
And the perpetrator was outside wrestling with the son, and the homeowner ran outside with a hunting type rifle and fired a few shots. The perpetrator was not killed. But I did a follow-up on that, although and the homeowner was under some in Nevada, it's kind of like a don't leave town,
Yeah.
And there's a possible case against you. There was no charges actually ever filed on that, as far as I can tell. But I did follow up on it because it was a good example of what you just pointed out, the errant shot. Because remember, the homeowner came home and ran into as the perpetrator was like running out, and the homeowner ran in and got his hunting rifle. And what happens if he shoots the perpetrator, stealing property outside of the home, and one of those shots hits one of the kids down the street. Although I did not intend to kill him under what's known as the law of transferred intent, my intent to kill the perpetrator, even though justified, would not be justified in killing the little kid or the neighbor down the street or shooting into his home.
Yeah, if you killed the right guy, that would be fine, but you killed the wrong
Exactly.
guy. So it's a crime. It's a crime to accidentally, on purpose, you're firing your gun on purpose and killing somebody. You're just saying, well, the target was the wrong one.
Right, and that's
now I'm going to go to the range and practice, so I won't do it another time.
Right, and that's the value of your show, which I don't only watch it when I'm on it, but every week you have these 5 or 10 examples of things which happen in the real world, which you cannot make up these stories. You can't, but they happen every single week.
No,
and I think that
they're there. I mean,
yes,
you look through. I mean, that's the example we just gave. If you look up, because this wasn't a death case, you look up Chicago resident shoots guy breaking into house with a date, and you get literally 50 cases show up. And most of them are drug deals and this and that and the other thing. This one obviously wasn't, but the anyway, I want to digress to gun shows. I know you've been involved. I've received notices. Normally, I put a table into the major gun shows to be there and meet the public and answer questions that they don't want to send me an email that says I have this illegal gun. What should I do with it? Some questions want to be answered in person. I think I might have shot a guy 10 years ago because I fired and I heard somebody yell it was in the night and I never found out what happened. What should I do? The questions you don't want to put in an email to my email, which is probably intercepted by NASA and everybody else, Yes, I'm paranoid like the rest of you. But But we had several gun shows canceled after the event that happened to us in the first. And I know you were involved with a couple of those.
Yes.
At least. So I know the Cashman Field show that was supposed to be downtown on the October 21st, 22nd is canceled.
Yes.
And apparently another one is going to be canceled, or was canceled. The Gun and Knife Show was canceled also.
The Western Trails.
Tell me what's going on.
Western Trails. The gun show was actually to be like the 7th and 8th of October, which was the immediate Saturday and Sunday following the tragic shootings at Mandalay Bay. Between Monday night, which would have been October 2nd, and Wednesday late afternoon, we probably put in, I would say, 50 hours non-stop, very little sleep. And by being approached by the cannery, Eastside Cannery, which is owned by Boyd Gaming, we understand you have a show, and I represent Western Trails Promotions, LLC, DBA, Western Trails Knife and Gun Show. We would like to have a mutual cancellation. What do you think? Now, on the opposite end, you know, my clients have vendors, they've got advertising, they've got expenses out there.
It's a huge undertaking.
It's a huge undertaking, especially when you're dealing with possibly between 100 and 130 vendors at a moderate show. It's not a big show. But the central question was, what's the right thing to do? And for all the time which was spent last week, between the time frame of what I told you, that premise was most important and was at the forefront of every discussion. What's the right thing to do? And the right thing to do was to cancel the gun show out of respect for the deceased, the families, those injured, those traumatized by the situation, at a great financial loss to both. Although I'm not at liberty to discuss the actual terms of the cancellation, other than to say there was a very nice press release put out through the Review Journal and some of the radio stations, which said that it was a mutual cancellation. And and you can imagine there are holdouts in any type of business, whether the Western Trails was selling guns, or it was promoting the sale of guns, or was promoting the sale of motorhomes. People were going to lose out, and there were some holdouts. But for the most part, the Las Vegas Review Journal, the blogs or the comments section which they had were about 98% positive.
Yes, I saw.
And there were a few, again, what does it have to do with this and all that? People want to buy the guns. But and then I did speak with the Cashman Field promoters. Today is Wednesday, so that'd be Monday of this week. They had advised me on Friday of last week that they were going to make a decision by Monday, which was day before yesterday, and they put out a really nice press kind of a release, and also on their voicemail, and they were calling all of their vendors, and they must have had several hundred vendors who had already paid a lot of money to be there. Again, the paramount consideration was respect for the deceased, those injured, and those traumatized by the incidents at Mandalay Bay. And I know that Western Trails took a huge financial hit, but they said it's the right thing to do. And I think that probably that happens with Cashman Field. The next show's coming up at the Texas, coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks. And then there's a show, the Claude Hall show, the Las Vegas Gun Show. And then they'll pick up again in November, as they usually do around Thanksgiving, and then a couple during Christmas. But that is my understanding. And again, I was actively involved in the mutual cancellation of the show immediately following these incidents, and working with the people at Boyd Gaming were just phenomenal in their in their sincerity. You could tell when you're speaking with the people. You could sense it in the emails. You could sense it in the documentation. And same with my clients.
Yeah, they haven't been anti-gun. The Boyd Group has been fine. They're just caught in a terrible position, and it's absolutely right.
Although they're selling legal guns.
Yeah, and this isn't about bump stocks and
Right.
whatever. And bump stocks are all over the internet for sale, and they're going for around $500 now. They used to be $150.
Right.
Because I don't know. Because what? Why would somebody want to buy one of those at this point? Because it's going to be more valuable next year. Except they're trying to outlaw the transfer of them. If they succeed, they're going to come and take it. Which that's a whole other issue. We're going to talk about that in a future show as these things settle down, where we're going. So as far as we know, Claude Hall show is going.
Yes, sir. That would be around
It's 11th and 12th.
11th and 12th of November, and then there's the Texas show, which is right before that, the weekend before, I believe. I want to say at the Texas Station Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, and that is on November 4th and November 5th.
Okay, and that one's likely going.
Well, so far, yes. And I can't speak for Claude Hall, and that's the following week. And then you have the Great Western Gun Show, which is, I don't know if that's going to be a 3-day show, but it's on the weekend of Thanksgiving. And I imagine all those shows are usually, pretty good shows. We were just at that one about a month ago.
Reserved the table.
Yes.
And I don't know for sure if the show is going or not. It appears to be. Apparently, Claude Hall's show at the Sports Center will be the last one anyway, because they sold the building.
That's what I heard.
And I've encouraged. It's a small show, and it's like a neighborhood show. People with garages full of trinkets they're trying to get rid of. And I've always encouraged people to go there. It's really a fun show, and everybody knows everybody. And it's gonna be sorry to see that one go. Quite a bit.
And Bob, statistically, and you've been around a long time with firearms, and again, this is my 34th year of practicing law, and probably at least 29 of those years after I left the DA's office have been involved something to do with firearms. Statistically, you don't have problems with the sale of guns at gun shows. There's going to be that small percentage, but statistically you don't have a problem.
They really don't. And one of the shows they found a guy that how it was happenstance. They have police at the show now to check guns coming in to see they're not hot, things like that. And a dealer there looked at another dealer's table, and there was an unusual single action. It was his. It was stolen out of his house like a couple of weeks ago. And there it is for sale on 2 tables away. And the police came over and said, you remember where that gentleman claims that's his gun. That was it was a single action, not worth a whole lot of money, but it was a unique gun. And the guy at the table, who's just a gun show gypsy, said, well, I know I bought it from somebody a couple of weeks ago. I don't know, he just came, and called me, and I bought it out of the paper for cash. And the policeman said, do you have any idea who the guy is? No, I don't keep records because I'm not a dealer. Here come the handcuffs, and off he went. And they pulled all the guns off his table, and I found another one was stolen at the same time.
Wow.
He was one of the guys that we all yell about that gives us all a bad name. Anyway, hopefully this will go on. It won't affect the industry terribly. It won't affect Las Vegas terribly. I think we'll be okay at the end of this. If we don't, as I said in the outset, we don't get too many dumbass gun laws that show up. Right. We're on YouTube, so I can say that. I've been having long discussions with redoing the radio call-ins that I used to do, and we may be changing formats here a lot. I've got some people want to come in and do Fired Up and make us a whole lot bigger. But anyway, I don't have a guest lined up for next week. I may have, and haven't answered the emails yet. This has been a tough week for everybody. I skipped all the commercials. If you need a copy of my book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense, which has a lot of the points that Don and I have been making about if you don't take a class, you don't want to go sit in a class. I always say, you know, the gun store has free concealed weapon classes, and you don't have to be in a concealed weapon to take the class. You can just take the class. Get some training. If you can't do that with live training and practicing shooting, this is the next best choice.
It's an excellent resource book, yes.
Yeah.
Revised.
My phone number is up there on the wall behind us. You can call there, leave a message on my tape at home, and I will get a hold of you and tell you where to send the money, and I'll send you a book.
We have people who frequently ask for the book, and sometimes we'll have a couple of copies there.
Yeah, I sell them at the gun shows.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
yes.
You know what?
I've had probably 10 variations of that book over the past 20 plus years.
Well, yeah, lots of people, right?
Yes. No, I'm talking about yours.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about yours.
Well, yeah, because when it reprinted like 15 times. And I go
yes,
through and update
I probably
it
had them all.
And yeah, the old ones don't have my picture on the back, and then older ones have my fat picture before I lost all the weight. So you can tell the new ones because they're in. Go see Grant Defense. They're over on 5580 South Decatur. Keel Grant makes AR-15 rifles, builds them here in Las Vegas. Got several of them. He makes some really whiz-bang custom blocks. I'm going to trying to have them Fired Up in a couple of weeks. If you have a firearms trust, I have told you before.
Yes.
If you've got a trust, you've had more than a year, it's wrong. Jerry Creed, my friend, we've known each other years and years, and he specializes in firearm trusts and class 3 trusts. You can find him easily, Jerry Creed, C-R-E-E-D, sounds like a go-to guy. He's out in Summerlin, free consultations, bring in your trust, make an appointment, and he will fix you up with an updated one that may hold up in court.
We don't do them, but we don't do the trust. We send all. Anyone who asks, we send them to Mr. Creed's office. You're right. You need to keep up with it. The law changed July 13th, 2016 at midnight. If you had something before, it's different. You had something after, it's different. Mr. Creed keeps up with that.
Yeah, and if you had a trust before that, especially when you got off the internet that's 2 pages, if it ain't 15, 18 pages, most of it's boilerplate. But you just have to say this, 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 and this, or that it's not going to be held valid.
No, because then you will be coming to see me, and he'll be calling me collect.
He can write you a new trust now, or he can get you out of jail later.
Right.
There you are. So anyway, I appreciate you listening to Fired Up. We're about a minute away from running out of airtime. This show will come on Thursday as is, and well, it'll actually come on tonight. You can go to YouTube and subscribe to Fired Up. Just go to Fired Up and look at any one of the shows, and there's a button there you can push, I'm told, for subscribing, and then you send you the show automatically. As I said, we've got a lot of new stuff coming up. We are about to see some gigantic money coming into Fired Up to make it a bigger show. I need more lawyers. More lawyers.
Send more lawyers, guns, and money.
I need, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, Don. Thank you again one more time.
Thank you.
We'll all get through this. Las Vegas will do okay. We'll be back to normal in time. It's going to take a while, but we'll be there. Horrible thing, but there we are. More next week as we get further in the investigation and find out more of the timeline. I'm going to do another show on those issues, and hopefully we'll have more information as to why this wacko nutcase murderer did what he did. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Here we go. Push button.